It's time for change to move into the real work of the universe. And it's time to understand that we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. Now you understand maybe why the Creator has sent his messengers in the name of whatever you have had. Is that they bring the ears, that it can be used when the time of the Messiah comes. They can teach the soul and the message, not to oppose. But by them understanding through those who have become Messiahs, to give from their souls to these to elevate, the job is made easy. The school is there and the students are devotedly there. Then there won't be any fight between what they call the Muslims and the Christians. The lamb and the lion will eat and sleep in the same nest. The Christians and the Muslims will sleep and pray in the mosque and in the same church in the name of their souls, not in the name of religion that is used to create so much conflict for the benefit of those who were the hyperactive children. The time has come, the time of change is here. And as I said, my wish is my command. If it's your wish to see peace, path of peace is laid very clearly. It's the soul of the collective awareness. By giving will create that position of change. No other thing. There is no pen in the soul of the man. And I'm sure once you go into the universal community, you will never see anything written but the balance of the fields of the soul of the existence. Try to be humble enough not to become arrogant in the power that you have understood and you possess. Otherwise, you'll fall in the same path of the church and the mosque. This is what we promised, and this is what we have delivered. We have to understand the operation of the soul, and we have to understand the soul of the man is a star in the cosmos of the universe. If we compare the soul of the man and many of us, 7 billion in one collection, Earth is like a galaxy with so many stars. When we look in the depth of the universe, we see galaxies with hundreds of millions of stars in it. So is the planet Earth. It carries 7 billion beautiful stars, which are the soul of the man. Carries with it soul of so many trillions of animals, plants, and everything else. So if you look, when someone who does not see the physicality of the earth and its content, what do they see? They see a galaxy with so many beautiful lights shining, each one according to their strength, each one according to their position. An infant has a beautiful soul, so has the old man. To those who do not see the physical dimension of this planet, but they see the strength of the field, we are clusters of stars. The human race, every single soul, no one from a distance sees, that's the soul of a fisherman, that's the soul of the cosmologist, that's the soul of a president. They all shine irrespective of the physicality. This is the magic. This is what the new science has to bring to man. When we look through our soul, we see nothing but we star in the other souls. And this is the break. This is the understanding. This is what all these teachings are about. Coming to mature to the next level, to understand in the deep space, the universe is the oyster for those souls who serve. Then man is ready to go into space. Then man is ready to become part of the universal community which has been promised. I never promised you heaven. I always promised you the elevation of the man to join the family. And now you have the key. It's you who has to open the door to understand, if I can raise the soul of these people or millions of other souls, that the physical life on this planet changes, then I'm worthy to be part of the universal community. To be there to serve, to expand. To be there, to be part, that in the cycle of life of universe, I become, in being part, I become part of the totality. When man reaches that point, a new dimension in the strength of the soul of the man will appear, which is beyond imagination of understanding of the physical life. It's the gate to the opening of the new life, in a new dimension, which is beyond imagination of what you might call a new beginning, a new cycle, which that cycle carries with itself the origin of the creation of life in the universe and the universe. It's the elevation of the soul to serve become the key, not a throne of the physical life. The time is right. The time has come for the man to go through this process.
Welcome everyone to the 263rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, February 14th, 2019. This is a presentation of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Public Teaching in English. My name is Rick Kremd. I'll be your host today. And as usual, we are joined with Mr. Mayran Keshe of the Keshe Foundation. And I think he's ready to go with this special teaching of Valentine's Day today, I note. Mr. Keshe, are you ready to begin?
Yes. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good day to you, as usual, wherever and whenever you listen to these public teachings. It's interesting. Just before we come on, it was said that we're talking about the carbon 14, and today is the 14th of February Christian calendar, which is known as a Valentine's Day, the Lover's Day. And I wonder how many of us, we woke up with the love of God in us, not the love of physicality of somebody somewhere. It's a very strange phenomena for a lot of people. to say they're loved and they want to be loved. And I said to Caroline when I met her very, very first time, I said, we come to this planet to enjoy the physicality and the love of man. It's something special. And it has a lot of meaning. And in so many ways, as what I say today is the same as what I said before. How do we love? It's part of an emotion. And how come we feel the love in our heart? Why do we feel love in our heart? And most probably, as I've said many times, heart is the soul of physicality. That's where feel all the cell of our body comes collectively together to represent the manifestation of existence of physicality of man. And this in so many ways answers many, many questions in what do we consider the love of the soul of the man. I think the love of the soul of the man in a very simple way is attachments of itself to its physicality to the point that the love of bigger love, which is the love of the creator, sets in and a new destination is set for the soul. In past couple of weeks, I try to attend as many public teachings and private teachings in trying to explain the new dimension. Very much, if you remember when we started the teaching relentlessly for 12 weeks in Trani, in Italy, to set the basis of the knowledge, the foundation, the correct foundation for the knowledge. And up to today, years will come, nobody can put a hair in it because it's so consistently correct. And now teaching the knowledge of the space, the knowledge of universe, needs that kind of dedication. As I said before, in the last couple of times, I've relinquished all my positions in the Keshe Foundation, and it's in the hand of capable people that it gives me time to see the transition through the man's understanding of the universe and the universal conditions and connection of creating the condition of setting up a standard of man to move into the next level of peace. And this takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time, and it's not easy. In the essence of it, why do we do this? Is it the love of universal community for mankind, to let them to elevate to their position? Or is it the love of the creator, trying to spread the message of equalness amongst his children? Equality is a different word than being equal. Equality has a lot of comparison. When you're equal, there is no comparison. And in so many ways, we consider ourselves in what essence? How do we measure ourselves? Where does our feeling comes into? As I said in the teachings recent past, the feeling is the point of interaction of non-dimensional entity between the soul of the physicality of the man and the soul of the man. Emotion is a line of communication between the two. What you feel in your soul, you feel in the dimension of physicality, and you transfer the emotion. When we decide to move our arm in our brain to protect or do something, that's the emotion of the physicality in respect to the soul. But when we feel it, is the emotion of the physicality, the soul of physicality, in respect, in dimension, in measure to our souls. And the sooner man understands this, then man understands what a gift has been given to him, that he can separate and understand the totality in a non-dimensional dimension, which means we have nothing to compare it with. We have nothing to assess it by except our own standard and except to what we see. You say to somebody, I love you so much and I love you more than you love me. How do you know is the measure of their love? What do you compare their love to? And how do we measure that in comparison to the love of the soul in respect to the love of the Creator? The understanding, and especially the teaching we started last week, since last week's teaching, explanation of carbon-14 and connection with the soul of the man and the physicality of the man, number of scientific organizations have approached and working around in the foundation, because we have opened a mystery box, a language which was not known, something which never understood. We always considered carbon-14 to the life cycle and length of the dinosaurs to man. We never considered this is part of us. We carry it, is with us. It assesses, it connects us, is the link between us and the creator and the creation of our own physicality. You got to understand, when the carbon-14 drops in strength, what does it become? It's very simple. It becomes carbon. That's all it happens to it with the release of its own energy. Because the only thing which happens in that position is the release of 2 neutrons. And what happened to those 2 neutrons? Automatically, according to the balance of the condition, they turn up to one thing. An odd creature with a lot of energy. With a spare electron, with a spare energy to give. If you understand the physics and the condition of the magnetic field, in so many ways, you will understand something very special. And that is what happens when we deal with carbon-14 and how it connects in our body, and why does it match into a lot of our things we do. If you look at the carbon-14, what does carbon-14 gives us? We have the combination of the 6 protons and 6 electrons, whatever we have, with additional 2, what do you call, neutrons. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. But we still have the 6 electrons. When these 2 split and separate, what do you have? You have 2 neutrons. Because immediately at this position, carbon-14 changes to 12 as a normal carbon in the body of the man, becomes part of the physical emotion conductivity of the physicality. What do you get in energy balance? You have 2 neutrons, which one has to, due to its energy pack, convert itself to a very simple matter. It becomes a proton, and with it creates its own electron. What is left? We can see. Those who work in space technology soon will understand the connection between these 2. How deuterium and carbon, or CH3, connect to the life of physicality, energy of the universe, and life of the soul of the man. Go back in my teachings a long time ago. I always explained, if you get access, understand the use of deuterium, you can have anything. Because if you look, if I can redefine this in a drawing, if I put this one here, one there, one here, and one there, if you look at it, what do you have? The combination deuteriums. combination of deuteriums. So carbon 12 is 6 deuteriums. Carbon 14 is 7 deuteriums. It's so simple. But in a matter of the energy of the man, we look at a different dimension. We look at it as the what we call energy of the gravitational and magnetical field forces. Then a lot of things start taking shape. Why does the body of the man connects with CH3? If you look, you have the same story again. You have a carbon, and what is a CH3? You have a spare electron somewhere hanging. What are the possibilities? Interaction of these two field forces releases enough energy that replaces the lost energy in one of the protons. What does that mean? What would that create? It gives you another deuterium. Now you have a spare proton. That proton will create a lot of new conditions, because in the world of science we have never considered the existence of free electron protons. And then if you look, what do you have again? You have again another deuterium set, which is another carbon 14. You got to understand, in the gravitational magnetic field of the science of the physics, there is a beautiful phenomenon. Now, this single proton behaves like a neutron, and it goes immediately into a nuclear decay. And then you get a new hydrogen. And this is the energy balance which we absorb in the body of the man as energy. We call it sugar energy. Because, as I said, even an electron has a half-life cycle. By the point when it divides, the electron itself becomes the neutron of itself, let alone a free proton. We have energy of a full proton, and how we orientate it in respect to the carbon and the deuterium which is released dictates what energies are absorbed for transmutation. Then when you look at this screen, you see everything in the life of universe is connected to the flow of carbon and combination of the energies of it. In so many ways, if you even look at CH3 and understand the energy brackets of CH3, CH3 at a higher order converts to oxygen. And this is what gives connection with the human body between the carbon 14 and carbon 12. We are not looking at electron proton bounds of 8 and 8. We are looking at the energy pack of CH3 conversion. So what does this allows man to do? If you understood this and understood the teaching of last week, very easy. Man lives two parallel lives. on a C12 plus energy pack, or lives with C14 connection to universal energy. This connects man to his physicality, and this connects man to his soul. This connects you to your children and your friends, because as a physical dimension, matter state of the GANs, this connects you to the soul of your children and your friends. Mankind lives the two lives simultaneously at the same time. But because of the eye of the man, we have come to understand and rely only on the physical dimension. But this cycle still communicates. This is what we call the soul of physicality, and this is what we call the soul of the man. This is how you know your child is happy or your wife is not happy, but you understand the information in reality has come through the back door to here and confirmed itself to here. Because these two continuously exist in parallel. Going to space and changing the dimension of the physicality of the man, which is carbon 12 connected to Mr. Cohen, the amino acid, is removed. So now man leads to the dimension of the soul of the man. And then when he appears, knowing that he has a connection, one thing man finds out, that all the creatures of the universe, on this universe, are connected to each other through energy of the carbon-14. The way that every man on this planet is connected to every other man through the combination of the energy packs of this planet, what we call amino acid. What you have, if you carry the nitrogen and change the nitrogen amino acid to another element, you will have a different blood color. You will have a different energy consideration and position. And in so many ways, if in the universe we put this carbon-14 with any combination of the strength of the local environment we arrive in, it decides again that connection to have a soul or to create a soul of physicality, and with it create a physical condition. Now you must have understood the importance of carbon. It's through energy pack, not matter state electron pack, which creates such a beautiful condition. The energy pack, which is what we call the magnetic energy of the carbon in the universe, has a specific characteristics which was created by the interaction of the magnetical field of any field forces and repulsion of any field forces. Is the intermediary, is the balance field force between the two field forces of the universe. And so, if you condition it to this position on Earth, it becomes the amino acid and the mankind. If you condition it to somewhere further down the line with a different strength, it becomes the man and the Zeus. Remember one thing which is characteristics of carbon, which we see in the matter state. Carbon is one of the best conductors And at the same time, carbon in a different strength is one of the best resistors we know as diamond. What mankind has to realize, and I was teaching this to some of the Iranian scientists very recently, is that this combination has a direct effect if you understand it in a matter state, in nano state, or in plasma state. Because if you understand this, the scientific world will realize something very, very simple. It is totally interconnected. If man in the future becomes a little bit clever and go deeper in understanding of the flow of a current in a conductive material, and understand a very, very simple thing, that why you have a 60, 50 or 60 frequency hertz in the copper wire. And then understand the position of carbon 14 and carbon 12. Then you understand where the conductivity comes into play. If you play with carbon 12, very simple, 5 times 12 gives you roughly the transmission of the fields of the carbon, or what they call the frequency of matter, copper state. If you understand and you have worked with nanomaterials and you understand nanomaterials are space capped, and you understand this very easy, then you understand where carbon 12 goes. But you can create a condition that you can force the energy of carbon 14 into the conditioned environment of carbon 12. And this is where your maglev units have been playing a game, where you get your energy from. But what you got to understand, this has a characteristics in a specific combination of 56, 54 to 70. So in some strength, you can pull energy the way you pull energy from the environment, and equal to the carbon 12 in a copper state vibration of the electrons. And then you can drain the nanomaterials layers energy into your system as a matter state electric currents to what you call AC. And this is the future of the new energy systems, self-sustaining, because you tap into the universal energy to feed into the matter state. If you pick up your nanomaterials after you use them for a while and you touch them, they're not that oily, but you can feel the touch, you can feel the diamond structure, the smoothness of. In the inner layers of the nanomaterial, you create a magnetic field strength of carbon 14. Soon, those of you who are in electronics and you want to play a game of energy, understand this very, very clearly. It works the way in the cellular structure of the body of the man. in space when you absorb C14 from environment, in converting it to the energy of the C412, you can feed the physicality of the man. And with this, exactly the same as your glands, converting the C12 in addition to anything else, you can create zinc, copper, magnesium, sodium, and everything else which the body of the man needs. This is what your thalamus and thymus incorporation together they do. Presence of the high radioactive material at gamma rays in the cellular structure of the body of the man allows the division of the carbon to combination of deuteriums. And each cell decides what in that deuterium and how many needs to be. So in fact, as it was assumed that the body of the man absorbs oxygen through its lungs and then it converts it, the job of thalamus and thymus in conjunction with each other and the gland system, all it does, it splits all the carbon energy which comes in as an energy through all the lymph systems, through the line of activity of the carbon, into batches of deuterium. And then each cell near and condition of it converts it to what combination, how many of it needs to structure calcium, phosphor, protein of any dimension, even immune system cell energies. Now, one of the biggest mysteries of the life of the man and existence of the man and operation of the what we call glands of the human body, or what we call substations of division of anything, understood. When you interact with such an energy in such a rapid way, all you need to do is very much is create two layers within the gland and allow the material to flow. Whatever it comes, from now on, is all deuterium released. This is the point of conversion. Before here can be anything. Here is all deuterium. And here, when it goes into the body of the man in circulation of the application with what we call the lymph systems vein motion of the material, then this is what is needed according to the structure of the lymph nodes and lymph connections. This decides here it needs to become copper, zinc, and everything else. So you create a free flow balance elements which according to where they pass and what is needed, they deliver themselves as energy back to. It's not as an electron and a proton, but it's the energy of literally a deuterium that any cell can call upon according to what it needs. Now we understand the conversion of the energy within the body of the man to structure into plasma of what we call cell of the body of the man. This is why the man in the North Pole, the Eskimo, eats only the same meat day in, day out, but supplies everything which his body needs, from calcium to magnesium to every other element in his body. It's the common denominator division of the deuterium which structures the feeding fancy of the body of the man. And as it comes to a cell of a heart, it needs certain combination of deuterium as certain strength of it, because all the deuteriums released are not of the same strength. Then it becomes the energy to cell, and that's how easily energy is transferred. And every cell in the body of the man receives what it needs at the point it needs, and it converts it to its own structure, to its own energy. If man understands this, when you come into dimension of the universal existence, which is the existence of the soul of the man, then the same operation applies to the soul of the man. The soul of the man is not just one thing. it's exactly replication of what we call the sun. It has interactions, it loses energy and it gains energy. And in that process, where it gains energy, it gains its energy from the spectrum of the carbon-14. On Earth, we converted everything to sugar connection, carbon. In the universe, we have the same feeding frenzy for the structure of the soul of the man. And if you understand, as I've taught, and as many of the writings I've released, I always say the size of the neutron in this universe is the same across, because the central line of the what we call creation of this universe has dictated the measure and the size and the cut of a neutron. And then when you go to Unicos, the same thing applies. Part of the energy of the neutron of this universe fits into the universal neutron energy. And this is how you can transmute, you can transfer, you can travel from one universe to another. Because again, you carry that common denominator. But in all the time, the carbon, which is, I always call it the creator, is the strength within it, within the center of element's existence, has the energy in gravitational magnetic field as the strength of the energy of the creator. Then if you look, the sub of the sub of the sub of the sub of the sub, they all have one common denominator, but at the same time, they all exist within and in a way through each other. The science and knowledge of universe is very simple. If the man does not understand it, it will become too complicated. But if he understands it, it has the first basic element of life to start anywhere in the universe. If you look at it, when you have 6 deuterium, depending in how they orient themselves, you become a resistor or you become a conductor. The difference in the strength creates gap enough that is too much to reach. And when you come to the other side, you become too fast, you become a conductor. If you have worked in the what we call material world, in the structure of the diamond, as you have been in some of the teachings in the past, you know that if you put certain amount of energy or current magnetic field through a structure of a diamond, diamond flips and becomes a conductor for a fraction of the milliseconds, and it converts back to a resistor. A super resistor becomes a superconductor under given condition. And that condition is the conformational transfer of the energy of carbon-14 to carbon-12. Where the orientation of the element transfers. But what does have the soul of the man got to do with the physicality of the man, and how these two got trapped and entrapped and working together is for man to understand how is existence in the dimension of the interaction of the two field forces of the earth and the sun by accident, totally by accident, has led to creation of carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen, which disconnected the physicality of the body of the man to the soul of the universe and leads to the creation. when the scientists look for life in other planets, very soon they'll come to understand that every life is and has connection to the line of the universal solar stream. It cannot do because it's created out of it. How we understand and handle this knowledge is entirely on man in how he wants to live in the span of the universe, in how he wants to translate this knowledge, in how he wants to be able to subsidize the energy losses of the soul of the man with the dimension of physicality. Now, where does the man like to start playing the game of gods? And how can you and what can you make to make the condition of the soul of the man to fit the condition of the soul of the universal creatures, that you can manifest yourself in their dimension? Or how do you make these what we call portals, that the soul of the creatures of the universe will manifest themselves in the dimension of the strength of the physicality of the carbon strength of this planet? How and what man can do to survive the spans of the universe in the strength of the amino acid of the body of the man, but in the physicality of the dimension of the universe. Why everything we look is related and connected into dimension of the minimum in giving and minimum giving more of. If you look at the structure of the amino acid of the body of the man, and then you understand how the hydrogen is come part of this equation of the amino acid, it should have given you a big information about the existence of carbon-14. The scientists never understood because we do not see this in the open spans of this planet. It's something which we have no connection with and we never considered. And the knowledge of man has come to man in pieces. And how it has come to be in this position. We learned our knowledge in piecemeals. We never understood the knowledge as one go. If man would have spent the amount of the energy on the way he has spent in past 40 years collectively on the nuclear industry, in understanding all the knowledge of this creation of the physicality in one go over past thousands of years, then we would have had a different dimensions of understanding and life on this planet. No man would have worked day and night to feed itself because he would have understood it can tap into the energy of the universal community. That's how simple it is, and that's how simple has been. We made it complicated. We have made it so strange to ourselves, and we have come to accept it. And we're not understanding it, and we have to in a way, accept somebody else's fallacy, we become ignorant to the true knowledge, and we become arrogant because of our ignorance. Very recently, I was teaching a bunch of doctors, becoming doctors. They haven't become not a medical doctors, they haven't become what we call PhDs. And it was amazing to see how an ignorant scientist, he calls himself, was so arrogant, full of his own misunderstanding, that he calls the technology a nonsense. And 2 days later, he asked the question, do you believe in origin of creation and where do we end? I said, you never understood the knowledge. You're so arrogant of whatever, you haven't even got a degree to put in front of you, few little inks. And it brought me a lot of wisdom to understand how man, before even gets to anywhere, becomes arrogant of his own knowledge. You carry this arrogance into space, by God, you will see very soon where you're going to end up. The more you understand, the more humble you become. And the more you become in contact and in dimension of understanding of the work of the universe and in touch with the universal community, the more humbler you have to become, not to become arrogant in the lies you've been taught in the dimension of physicality on this planet. Try to understand and try to go to the private teachings, because I start teaching a lot in the private teachings about the soul of the man, about the condition of the existence of the man, about how man will come to understand, to love, and a lot of other things. We have to become independent of our own, what I call meager existence, because we have become arrogant in what we actually do not know ourselves. In so many ways, if we can understand the true knowledge, then we do not have that much of a problem. If we come to understand the reality about our own existence, we will not have that much of a problem. But man will run into a lot of problem very soon, because I see we'll try to carry the arrogance of the titles which worth nothing in the universe on our shoulders. I am Professor so-and-so. We have no universities in the universe, sorry. And what you know as a professorship is a dust in the knowledge of the universe, not even a speck of dust. The scientists and educated people of this planet will have a very rough time in the space. Extremely rough time. Because no one listens to the nonsense of qualification. Because the only line of qualification is, if you can survive, then you have understood. If you cannot survive, it means you haven't understood. Doesn't matter how many pylons of jackets of degrees you have gathered on the meager understanding of this planet. I remember when I went to Iran, the office of the president told me, "What would you like us to call you, Mr. Engineer, Professor, Doctor?" I said, "I have no title. My name is Keshe. You decide what you want to put on it. What you carry on your back on the donkey, does that fit me?" Then they said, "Oh, we call each other by the first name. That'll be much better that way." Because then nobody knows how much stupid or donkey we are, what we have agreed to call ourselves according to. So it became very easy. Man has not understood the total knowledge of creation. I have taught in past few weeks a lot about communication work and the structure of the man in the space, in respect to how to go to universal community. But one thing that you will understand is, and I know many of you working on, is understanding of the creation of portals. If you understood the connection between the carbon and its different strength, then you know, by giving energy to the soul of the entity, we can manifest the entity. Because you feed through the soul of the entity. And the soul of the entity, in respect to overall gravitational magnetic field of this planet, with its environment in connection to the carbon 12, will manifest itself. You remember how the thalamus sometimes, in respect to the work, converted deuterium to copper, zinc, or nitrogen, or whatever. Then the soul of the entity decides in what it needs according to its strength to manifest itself in a dimension of its physicality. Most probably, you might see, if your system is not complete, some features of the human physicality. Says, "Oh, on this planet they have 2 hands and 2 arms." Don't forget, the condition of the gravitational magnetic field force of this planet and this solar system, still, even though you have created the airtight system, you think, has field interaction with the dimension of the carbon 14 of the physicality. And it creates a manifest entity in the shape of the man. So you might see and think there's a lot, but inside you shall not bleed, and inside you shall not find any limb. Any questions?
Good morning, Mr. Keshe.
Oh, Zara, how did I know that you're going to jump before anybody else?
So, Mr. Keshe, last time you talked about you draw the carbon 14 for the first time, and you started from 0, you went to 56, the iron, and then the 70 was gallium. So I didn't understand what is the whole diagram. Is it the different generation of humanity? 70 gallium is the next generation, or everything is the same? I totally didn't get it.
No, it's an energy pack of the matter state of the elements.
So how does it work in the body then? Goes from 0 to 70?
No, it doesn't go 0 to 70. It means the body of the man can absorb elements in that range.
Okay, so
Every element which is on this planet is created and can be absorbed by the gravitational magnetic field of the planet, and then can be converted due to its inertia in the dimension of the existence of the sodium and oxygen, which in interaction leads to creation of what you call as a liquid of water. You'll understand this one day. Then you will understand a simple point, and that is every element which we see in the on this planet has certain amount of it in Gans level in the body of the man. Even the elements man has not found out yet. And each one has been used as the more mature being has been created. A lot of the heavy elements past certain numbers are very much connected to the emotion of the man. A man has not even understood those yet. So you can change your emotion according to elements which are within your body, because that is what it is. You got to understand, very simple structure. I'm trying to be very generous, give you a very big brain. The connection to the matter state, the connection to the matter state of the man sits at this level, which if the soul of the man is here, is in fact one of the furthest distances to the soul. This is your brain, and this is the line of the field emotion of your arm or your leg. When it comes to other dimensions, you come closer. So you understand the emotion of the man more or less sits in this bracket. Higher strength order. The dimension of the interaction with other conditions which the man is already understanding a little bit of and is trying to explore this new environment, leads to connection with the soul, communication soul of the other elements or other creatures. We have not even understood the work of this level yet. We are just bearing on the surface touch of this area with some electrodes and other things we have developed. We have not managed to bore a hole and sit here and feel what emotions we can change. But with the application of ganses, we can reach direct. This is a new tool man never had. And If you can create a condition of different strength, you can control the emotions and control the communication line to the souls, that you can yourself speak to what you want. Now you understand that what is now given to man. What is, if you can create dimension of the field of the carbon 14 or its combination of the magnetic field spectrum, which souls and which dimensions of the universe, which your soul is aware of their existence, you can communicate with.
Mr. Keshe, I want to bring the black hole in this picture. When you talk about the soul, and the soul is a black hole, and with that we can do like even travel with it. But my question is then we talk about like when you sleep and our eyes are closed, the soul doesn't sleep. The soul constantly is observing and giving and taking. But the question is, when I'm asleep and my eyes closed, what decide what the soul goes after? What kind of a thing he goes or she goes? For example, I'm sleeping, you're sleeping. What decides what my soul is gonna observe or take or on this or go after, and what decides your soul is gonna go as an adventure? What
Do you
determines?
know what we say in a simple language? Is your fault you put the soul of physicality to rest. The soul of the man is working 24 hours a day. Can you put a gate on the sun and say, sorry, I closed the window of the sun? The only thing you can do, you can shut the window of your own room and your own house. That's all you can do. The sun is still shining. You lived in Europe, all the homes have blind shutters, no light can come in. You're in the room, it's as dark as at the night in the middle of the lunch. Sunny day in the summer. The work of the soul doesn't stop just because you decide to shut the windows to you. So it's for you to understand, it's for the man to understand at the point of the cut between the physicality, soul of physicality and soul of the man itself. If the energy which soul uses for its existence was left to the man with the meager food he eats, by God, he would have died a long time ago. As much energy as you see is radiated from the sun, radiates from the soul of the man. It would have been a beggar. Begging for energy from the physical soul, give me more, eat more. Instead of 2000 calories, gives me 200,000 calories a day because I'm still got a lot of work to do outside. The soul of the man feeds itself through the dimension of the universal energy and has a physical dimension strength too that is fed by the physical soul of the man. In the past 2 or 3 weeks, as I said, I start teaching a lot in the private teachings because we have to educate the next cycle of men who become mature to understand the work of the universe and can live within it. Not to become bandits and rebels because they cannot fit into it. They cannot become a misfit. It's just how find out you can fit in.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Welcome, Jose.
Mr. Keshe, we have a question from Aline from Romania in the Q&A. He says, please ask this question. I have seen the flow of plasma fields between atoms in the nano layer resemble many roads that communicate. So is it the same way in the universe? Are the fields the roads where we travel?
Very much so. And are all fast train highways. You know, nowadays we who sit in a train and are very proud to show us 349 kilometers an hour, 354 kilometers an hour, or 254 kilometers an hour. And the ones in the third world nations are happy if they go 25 kilometers an hour. It's about train, but we have understood more and we can handle higher speed. If you've been on the German trains or Chinese trains, high-speed trains, you see it, or the Japanese. They are very proud to say what speed they are going till they fall off the track. And it's happened. If you go too fast, you fall out. It's the same. If you go too fast, in respect to the energy of the magnetic fields of the universe in a given position, you just drop off, and then you're going to see where you're going to land.
So if you were with, say, a group of rays, then you fell back, then the strongest one would kind of take over and take the lead in that case, I'm presuming.
Yes, very much so.
That way.
Very much so. In the hopefully in the next publication of the Keshe Foundation journal, we release one of the most important papers of the present time in the world of science of medicine. This paper is getting drawn up. We do not release much detail, but we have shown for the first time, understanding this process, how we can change a DNA into an RNA, and through RNA create a new DNA manifestation connection. And we have shown this experimentally. It was pre-predicted, and going through the process has shown to exist because we have scientific data confirming it. Because we understand this work. It's very, very hard. At the moment, the scientists who have been put to cannot comprehend it because such a thing was impossible. We could not ever create an RNA. And through the RNA, create a connection with another DNA. And through connection of this RNA, we could link with the DNA that it could manifest itself in a physicality to affect a physical condition. You know, when we release knowledge after years, it becomes, oh, now what this is such a thing. But it's all in the teaching. Many, many scientists are listening to these kind of teachings of Keshe Foundation, are going over the past 5-6 years teaching and picking up the knowledge which is left behind and how they can promote it and how they can use it. We could never even imagine we can create a condition of RNA, because at the moment a lot of scientists are just like crazy, the guy's talking rubbish again, but we have it physically. We have taken a conditioned energy pack of a DNA and in interaction with our system have created, allowed the release of an RNA, which that RNA has interacted with another DNA, creating a physical condition. And we can measure it, we can see it, it's been tested by the doctors, by the scientists in the laboratories. And they cannot understand it. How is it possible that we go from a DNA structure into RNA structure? And then we see the manifestation of the problem in the dimension of the physicality of the entity. This paper will be released very soon. It's just going in its final stages of it. And it's very important for us to understand this, that how we can convert and how through understanding of the line of the carbon-12, we can convert into carbon-14 and change in any way. If you look at it, RNA is the soul of the cell and DNA is the physicality of the cell. So understanding this, we can go from one to another. And we have a scientific laboratory confirmation of the creation in RNA, which leads to manifesting an interaction with the amino acid, which confirms the existence of the RNA coming from a DNA structure. We have already what we are teaching in progress and in evaluation. And this document in the next few days will be in the hand of governments. World leading nations will receive this document because it has huge implication and applications. And it only can be handled by nations, not by organizations or what we call ordinary men. Because if you understand this, then you understand how we can allow the RNA or the soul of the creatures to manifest itself in the shape of the man once we open the, what we call, these gates. We have problem handling each other with the color and race. Now we have these guys coming from outside which know more than us, they carry more than us, and then they can mutate to the physicality of the man. When I said it to the scientists, they all said, no, it's a mistake. But when we explain and we show how it's changed, and they saw it in case after case, 200 or 300 cases cannot be wrong. This the way we went through the mutation of the elements. Now we can go through the mutation of the fields of the energy from matter state, entity state to energy and back to another matter in a physical life, not anymore converting gold to silver or copper to gold and silver. Now we can do with the essence of the creation of the man and the soul of them. Over 700 cases. So now we can even create a condition that how we are going to look in the dimension of physicality, in another dimension of the manifestation, according to the position and feel the strength of the point of manifestation. And when it happened, the scientists we had, but it's not that we made a mistake. We made a mistake originally, but it wasn't there because data confirmed it was there when it was, and then it came out another. How did it appear? It's a magic show of the plasma technology. So if you understand this, would be able to change your appearance. If you're a black man, you wanted to be a white man to get advantages of the white man in the white society. Now we have to guess if the guy is black, because we don't know. He can transmute very easily with the new knowledge gained. Or when we go to China, we all look Chinese, speak the Chinese language, and nobody knows. When you go back to New Zealand, you become white. Then when you go to Australia, you become Aussie. And if you take a trip into Africa, you become a Chinese black African soul. But nobody will know. We have now achieved transmutation of the soul, or the soul of the man, or the soul of entity of the universe. And you will see it in submitted papers. We only work with the energy packs, which is a plasmatic gravitational field. But we touch the physicality of the amino acid as we wish. Now, the real work of the plasma technology is sticking his head out, or at least is toward the moment. Very recently, past couple of years, when we produced the data, number of government officials, they said this is false, it is lies, it cannot be done, and we sat in meetings, the shouting I heard, the accusations I heard, and then when test after test confirmed the same progress, now is one of the best buttercreams ever in the market. The same people who are shouting and howling, now they don't know how to get it done and push it through. That now it brings a lot of changes. Now we have achieved the same in the confirmation of the teaching, as we call conversion of the strength of the CH14 into the strength of what I call C14.
Mr. Keshe, I think you said CH14 into C14. Did you mean CH3 into C14?
It's the same. It's the same because the CH behaves as CH3 behaves as the CH, as what do you call it, carbon 14.
Right, I think you just misspoke and said a CH14 as
I said CH14, yes, because the CH which behaves as carbon 14.
Right, okay.
Okay. Because you have a CH which can behave as a carbon 16 too, as an oxygen 16 or a carbon 16, but it shows itself as an oxygen. This is a mistake we had. If you go back to the teaching of last week, where I say a lot of scientists look at the carbon 14 in the matter states of actually nitrogen.
Right, I was going to just ask how nitrogen works into the into this situation.
The nitrogen works very easy because if you understand the connection between the carbon or between the nitrogen links, you'll see a very, very immediate, clear sharing of energy. If you look at the hemoglobin with iron in the middle, with 4 hydrogen neutron and nitrogens, and then you look at the chloroplin, which is the animal blood cell, then you see with magnesium, then you see the difference, you understand the difference very quickly, how it plays. nitrogen in these links in the matter state is 14. But in reality, it's carbon 14 in the structure of the work of the body of the man, in the strength of the soul of the man. Go back to the medical teachings of the first 40, 30, 40 teachings. It's the continuation of the same teaching. Nothing has changed. Now you understand more. In the medical teachings, as we at the beginning, the understanding of the scientific world in the matter state was explained. Then in the second part of the teachings, we always looked at the soul and the blood and the energy of the soul of the man in the blood circulation. Then you see it's consistent. Now you understand more of. It's the same thing with the plants. It's the same nitrogen. But in fact, this nitrogen connection to the iron, which is what you call what we call 56, is connection, and it can only be because only parallel strength energies can lock into each other. What is magnesium in the periodic table? What is iron in periodic table? Look what is the lymph of the man is made of. When you snap a branch or a green plant, do you see red blood or do you see a white blood? Or do you see a green blood? Why the blood of the plants always white, creamish?
Hello, Mr. Keshe.
Yes.
It's John from Arizona. I have a question that's been bothering me. If I had something like let's say I had a copper oxide GaNs, and I mixed it with zinc oxide GaNs, would the strength of that be the strength of 64 plus 68 or 132? Or and would it also be the strength of the copper and the strength of the zinc? So it has three different strengths within it, or does it just have one?
Sorry. Hello, John.
Yeah.
Can you hear? I just dropped off when you said, would it have the strength of the copper and zinc? Yeah, carry on.
So would it have the strength of the copper and the zinc combined, plus the strength of the copper, plus the strength of the zinc individually?
Plus.
So would it have three different strengths, or would it have one
It has
strength?
minimum 4.
But the oxygen too, right?
Actually, no. Actually, you have in reality 7 different strength, and in combination, I think 16 or 19 strength.
Because of the salt that we make it from, and
No, even if you take the zinc GaNs and take it out, and take the copper GaNs and take it out, and you take the combination. Let me explain to you. Maybe you understand a little bit. when you have, if you go to the book number, I think it's number 3, where we show the ganses. Somebody's microphone is open. These are your copper. These are your zinc. In magnetic field interactions, does not finish. This is how creation was created. This is how the elements of the universe were created. Maybe you understand something from this. The interaction of between the zinc and the copper creates its own separation field. This is what we do in the plates. We put a nano copper and a copper, and between we create copper, but when we put a zinc and a copper, the difference gives us this carbon. Man should have, all of you should have realized how come between the copper and zinc I produce CO2? Where is the copper coming from? Where is the carbon is coming from? Now you see the carbon 12, carbon 14 still here, where I told you the separation between the links of the gravitational and magnetical is always a carbon 14. You see, you created it. I've taught you the same thing, but that time I could not explain. Now, what is addition to this is you have certain strengths that they add up together. And the adding up gives you the 60 plus 65 or 62 plus 65. I always work this way because I look at the magnetical, give 1, take 2. Or if you go 62, the difference gives you the carbon double. Now, but this one is 127. One thing you have forgotten is this guy and this guy create their own 124. This one and this one creates their own 130.
Where are
These
you
are,
coming up with those numbers? How do you get to the 124?
oh, 2 copper, 2 copper, 2 zinc.
Oh.
You're not working with one, huh? You have to consider all combinations. Go back to the teaching. When you had the star formation, the interaction of these 3 created a free space here. The attraction of these 3 creates a space here. The interaction of these 3 created here. Yeah? And then the interaction of these 3 created you the free space. Plus what you have in the bottom, interaction of the 3 between each other. Pushes it to what we call the free space. So when you have dynamic systems in the plasma, in the gas condition, every combination is created. It's you who have limited your knowledge or understanding to a given point. Now, the next step is very simple. Now you have a carbon 12. Now you have the 60, I call it, it's easier, and 65 or 62 and 65. Yep. Now these interact and this interacts. Then this interacts with this one. This interacts with this one. At the same time, they all interact the same way. This is how universe created a spectrum of the elements. Because this carbon 12 has interaction with these. Now it's a new entity. It has to interact with something, with this environment. The same thing here. It has to interact with this one. Now the difference between these 2 creates a new condition. And then you have to understand, due to the positioning of these little chaps,
Here, I have to find the right color. There we are. Because of the positioning of these little chaps here in the nano layers, gas plasma layers, or whatever you call it, some of them, due to the proximity of their own, do not turn all clockwise or anti-clockwise. Now you have to find the field balance forces. So you can get a reduction. So you get a 62 in the magnetic field, and you get a 61 plasma. So you have left with 1 or negative of 1. So if you have such an interaction with your carbon, then you understand instead of carbon 12, you have carbon 13 because you're extracting. Then you understand how the elements of the universe are created and how things progress. We started with one element, which was the soul of the creator. In giving and returning back to itself, the friction created and then the division of the cells. All the elements of the universe are created due to the same kind of interaction as you see here. Because then what is slowed down in the field of the back leads to creation of inertia. And then the totality of that in interaction with the field force of the universe leads to creation of the matter state. Unified field theory. I created as I have created in return of being created by my own fields. Now you understand the beginning of life, the origin of the essence of the creation, the creator. This is how the creation started, with one point of reference of energy, one point of reference of the creation of magnetic field, which on feeding on back on itself to complete itself, lead to the creation of the universe. Very simple. You're one, which you're radiating. It comes back to you, and in interaction between going and coming back, now you created the third one, the friction, we call it carbon. Now you have a game to play, haven't you? And now you can see with the dimension of some of these fields due to the reaction rotating the other way, you get subatomic and above atomic. And then you start with the hydrogen, and you end up with plutonium and many elements which man has not ever understood, because this division of the bigger fields are still interacting. There is no end to the strength of the elements of the universe created by creator, because this is how it started from one. This is the origin of the creation. It's the origin of life on this, in this unicos. Forget along the universe. Now you understand where the man, where the origin of creation has come from. But the biggest point in the world of creation is a very simple question. Where did the creator come from? One day I'll teach you.
Thank you for the explanation. Although I think it got a little complicated for me.
Pardon?
Even though it got a little more complicated for me, thank you for the explanation.
No, it should have got much easier for you to see your creator. This knowledge has never been revealed. Now you understand. I hope you're not falling off your chair, John.
That wasn't me.
We have Hassan with his microphone open, and he had his hand up here. Perhaps he has a question, Hassan. You have a question? Your microphone's making a lot of noise right now.
Hello, Mr. Keshe. This is Hassan from New York. And,
Yes.
and I have a question. The physical soul is has a different energy than the soul of the man, which is carbon-14. And when the physical soul wants to match with the soul, that's when the emotion kicks in. And you mentioned the addiction of the man has to do with this discrepancy and matching the energy. Am I right?
In partially, yes. You see, the soul of the man and the soul of physicality of the man has a small difference. The soul of the man has connection to the energy fields of the universe. The soul of the physicality of the man has an energy field to the gravitational magnetic field of the earth. That's where the difference is. Our soul is created from the free energy of the universe. It's very much the way we found the amino acid to create the physicality of the man. Our soul has a physical dimension, but in the strength of the universal strength. You can see it. If you elevate yourself or you come from a higher dimension, you see the soul of the man the way we see the physicality of the man. We are creatures of two different strengths, but one strength in common. It's the way where, for example, the energy by the interaction of the fields of the earth and the sun leads to creation of the energy of nitrogen. This energy is in the atmosphere, it's above the earth, but it has existence. And if it interacts with other entities of the same strength, lead to the creation of the life above earth. But if it gets to the strength of the total gravitational magnetic field of the inertia of this planet, it converts itself to nitrogen, or the energy of the nitrogen, which then, if the right field strength is manifested, it becomes matter state. What is the matter state? Is matter state is when the energy of the environment matches the energy and state of the soul of the entity. Very simple. But because man is a combination of dynamic systems, is liquid is dynamic. We can move, we have a soft skin. If we are singular in energy, we convert iron, copper. But if you are in the space dimension, not fully interacted with the inertial field forces, you stay in the plasma energy condition, we call it a gas, then you say, I take your blood, I see copper in it. You see the energy of the copper that at the point of separation from dynamic system of it, it manifests itself as a matter state. What the doctors say is a copper is not the copper that you can hold it in your hand and say, I can go and sell some gold from my skin. Our soul is created, it has a dimension, it's got its own amino acid, but has the line of the strength of the universal energy line of connection. And our soul of physicality has got the earth connection line of energy. That's why we have to eat from it. We have to have food from it. We kill for it to feed it, that it can match and confirm its existence to its partner, which is the soul of the man of the common strength. Not the full spectrum, common strength. That's why we live a dual life. One in the dimension of the soul strength and one in the dimension of physicality strength in conjunction with the soul strength of the physicality. This is what I explained fully in the private teachings in the last week.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
You will.
There's another question. When you mentioned CH3, that carbon and, I mean, the two hydrogen and one electron can exist and proton can be by itself. What condition would cause that? What would bring that system?
Always does. It's a natural process in the plasmatic atomic structure of the gans of the body of the man. It's a natural process because you have the extraction and you have the attraction and you have the repulsion. You have, Mr. Cohen, you have the carbon. You have an energy field connection. You have here two dynamic systems which are trying to sustain and hold on to their own energy, which the energy releases. And nitrogen can absorb and release for the oxygen to hold on to pull of the gravity. The surplus energy, we see it as released energy. Because when a cell absorbs energy from CH3, it has to release a lower state energy out to be able to receive. We cannot keep on filling it in. It has a dimension. So it has to release some of the lower order or higher order. The energy we consume to run by eating another element, where does that energy go? Law of the conservation, it tells you it has converted to something lower or higher. It doesn't disappear. And we never consider that. We say we need to take 1600 calories to be able to live one day. But hold on a second. I have to give 1600 calories out. To be able to receive 1600. We never count where does it go. Does it stay in the body of the man or we create it to motion? They say we create it to a heat, but where does that heat go? Where does that energy in the motion gets absorbed to? And this is, if you listen to a lot of teachings in the past, I keep on saying, especially in some teachings, I'll explain that when you create a nanomaterial, it absorbs the energy from the environment, comes from the heat of your body, comes from the emission of the energy which is released by the soul of the man. It's a totality. You cannot stop in one point because it suits you according to your level of understanding. This is important for all of us to understand. We have no choice. We cannot ignore or in a way dismiss just because it doesn't suit us. We are the creatures of the conditions created by the universe. And at this moment, according to that condition, by the collection of the fields of the universe, we have manifested ourselves in the body of a man. We call it the body of the man. and itself is an energy pack. It's nothing else. Just because you have a skin and you think, oh, I have a bone, I exist only. No, we are again another transition point. What happens when you get an apple and you put it in the mixer and you get the juice out of it, and then you put the rest in the apple pie, or you put it in something else? Has the apple disappeared, or the taste of it appears? So, oh, you put apple juice in this. We are on the passage of this planet. We're getting pulled into the sun, and then we get spewed back again. Stand still 1 second and think something very, very rational. And this comes to me, and I explain this very, very simply, because then you understand. Look at the surface of the moon. Look at the surface of every planet. We say that these surfaces have been hit by meteorite. We see the craters. And don't forget, this is a speck of dust and it gets hit by so many meteorites. You have all these ditches and dips and mountains. If such a small dust, they say you can put the whole of the planetary system of the solar system in one of the planets. That is, put the Mars, Saturn, everything else, you can fit it in one of the planets of the gaseous layer. And all that is not even 5% of the solar matter. Now, if you can get so many hits on the surface of the moon that we can see all these craters, and on all the other planets, on our own planet, we've seen the craters are getting hit, which shows the motion of the material moving into the direction of the sun. How much of the sun, energy of the sun, which was created, which led to the creator of matter state, that it led to the in their interaction with all these craters, have returned back to the sun. How the sun is getting hit by so much of its own material coming back, it's getting rained down back on it. Just because it's liquid, we can't see it, we ignore it. And then some of it, because of the high heat, if it comes to that point that we don't understand it fully yet, in the future I'll explain, some of it evaporates back into the space because of the accidentally hitting the craters on the surface of the sun. Then here we are, you and me, we get absorbed into the sun. We have a soul, we get hit by it and we go back again. Where is your soul? My soul ends up in Jupiter, your soul ends up in Saturn. So it's the same. A lot of scientists, when you look at the surface of the sun, they say you see these huge explosions going out. Read one of the papers, a book coming out in the name of the creation of the solar systems. Not all these huge splashes from the surface of the sun is due from internal boiling, as they call it. It's partially due to its meteorites which are returning back in at a higher mass level. But because it's so bright, we don't see it. We never considered this because we never understood the reality. We always ignore till it fits us. When it doesn't fit us, we just ignore it and it doesn't exist. If Earth can get hit by meteorites, if the moon can get by meteorites, in return of the materials coming in one direction, all the meteorites come from the outer space towards the center. And we are in there, we get hit, Earth gets hit, the moon gets, where is the rest is going? In the clouds of the universe? No, they go back and they hit the liquid surface of the sun. And some of these huge interferences we see is the higher order magnetic field of these matter states, that they hit the surface. And it's exactly like you drop a stone on a pool, you get a splash. You drop it on the floor, you go tuk 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 and it runs. You drop it on the pool, you get a splash and everything else with it. But the matter state with a magnetic field and energy strength of a higher order get absorbed towards because they match. The rest of it is stripped. That's simple. Then we are passengers of this aircraft or this craft called Earth, which is one-way traffic. Does not matter. We are born here, we have a physical body, they're buried, but it's going to end up for sure in a coming time on that star. And where does our soul go? We have to be, and I keep on saying, man will take from my knowledge according to his understanding, according to the strength and clarity of understanding the truth. What we call intelligence.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. I have, regarding the portal, could a man be a portal? And I've been experimenting. I think somehow I'm either opening a portal or I'm getting my soul to come out. I mean, if it's okay, I can talk about it, or if not, maybe another session.
I think a lot of people don't know you, and they don't understand the level of, it's the first time, most probably second time they hear you on the teachings. And they have no understanding of the level of understanding you have in respect to the teaching. And I prefer this to be talked in the private teachings than the public teaching, because human race is not ready yet for it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you very much. Hussein is the brother of Azar, and they're highly involved in the development of the technology in different aspects. He does all the Persian teachings. He is the administrator of Persian teachings, Persian language, Keshe Foundation, FSSI.
Mr. Keshe, is
Yes.
Azar again?
Brother and sister, you don't leave us alone, huh?
I mean, it took me a long time to get him get up, so he's involved now. Because he always asked me questions, so I was the middleman, I guess, sometimes. But Mr. Keshe, I think the most one of the biggest problems of the mankind, I think, is our intelligence. Because if we dim the intelligence a little bit, the soul would shine. But we're so full of ourselves. This mind can really damage a lot. That's how I see it. The intelligence, because the trees, the plants, even the animals, they understand the flow with the universe, the energy of the universe. And then we actually, with our mind and intelligence, we work against ourselves.
Sometimes I think the best gift of the man is his own arrogance and his intelligence, because that allows him to make a fool of himself, not to understand the totality. And this is what I call according to the intelligence.
We have a couple of questions, Mr. Keshe, that tie in here from Gerard in the live stream. Can we consider these GANs combinations to be the plasmatic filters to connect to your higher self creator?
I think if you look at it, if you go down the road, you get there to it faster than going higher. If you look at it, man has a very bad habit. And it always looks that the higher is more powerful because, you know, we build these bigger buildings, we build these more powerful engines. The actual essence of the creation started from nothing. It's not that a very big snowball started and then it divides. Its interaction leads to the creation, not its accumulation. The accumulation of it leads to the physical dimension of higher order. In Farsi, we have a beautiful say. We say, قطره قطره جمع شود وانگهی دریا شود. Means drop, drop will collect, and then it makes an ocean. Oceans were not created out of their own. It's the same with the essence of the creation. But you have to understand, by division of the smallest, we have created bigger. If you understand the principle of the interaction of the magnetic fields plasma condition. The philosophy of creation is not that the creator was so huge and is just splitting himself in pieces and different universes created. It's the interaction of it. But creates one condition. This is a question I put to leading cosmologists. And in my teachings, you always I refer to it if you heard it. They say the universe is expanding at the speed of 1 million kilometers an hour. But there's one fundamental question which I put all the time, and you should have understood by now. Many of you must have found the answer to it. A balloon cannot expand into a space if the space for it is not created. And if it's created in a space, it has to have an interaction with the space, that it creates a condition of it that it allows it to grow into or restricted by. When you have a balloon and you put it in a room, it can hit to the size and dimension of the room. And then depends how much air you put in it, it blows up because the rest of the building doesn't allow it, or it pushes the wall away. The wall pushes and it pushes. Which one wins? And if the cosmologist tells us that this universe is expanding at the rate of 1 million kilometers an hour, what is it expanding into? Then there must be another universe. It must be a bigger dimension that it's expanding, it's taking its space. It's not more working on its own. And then if there is such an interaction, there must be some energy absorbed and some energy given. Is it a transformation of the energy of the universe back into the dimension of physicality of man's universe? If you look at the size of our solar system, has dimension. This dimension is not created by the sun. It's created by the interaction of the sun with other field forces outside the solar system that dictates the size of it. And that size allows to its dimension creation of planetary system. If we get closer and we get squeezed, the atmosphere of the solar system is squeezed, it can't have this many moons because it hasn't got the dimension of the reduction in strength to become in a matter state at our level, but still exists in other levels. So as we go closer and closer into the center of the galaxy, we lose most of our moons because everything is pushed in. It's a balloon getting squeezed. Why do we see so much huge amount of meteorites going towards the center of the sun? Partially it's because it's gravitationally, partially we are moving into more center. The space is getting tighter, huh? Have you been standing outside a train station and on a platform, and you're very nice and comfortable, and then you get yourself in and there's more people, they squeeze you. You go half a size, but you have to get to the destination, so accept the pressure. When they release you, they go. So we lose many. Is the ultimate destination of life. This is where the paper I wrote, the origin, the creation of black hole, explains this fully. And in that interaction, some fields are released. And now we see with all these stars which are getting squeezed, absorbing another star, they release the energy from the center of the black hole. Exactly what I explained 12, 15 years ago in the paper. Now has become common acceptance. Till before the publication of the original and what we call it, the creation of black holes, no one ever spoke anything coming up, anything coming out of the black hole. We accepted the fallacy by Stephen Hawking, and everybody accepted it. Now we see what I wrote in manifestation of release of energy when a black hole absorbs. To a certain point, and then you see two beams coming out of it. We have pictures of it taken by the, what we call the tools we have to observe the universe. Because we are nuclear physicists, we are physicists who understand the structure of the creation in the minutest. Any other question?
Well, I have a question, Mr. Keshe. We were discussing in the Keshe Plasma Reactor group yesterday the Jupiter and the phenomenon of the eye in Jupiter, which is about twice the diameter of the Earth. And it's like a sort of like a black hole in the gaseous giant of Jupiter, which is supposedly made up of monoatomic hydrogen and helium as basic gases that are also.
Can you repeat that, please?
We were talking about Jupiter and how it's a gaseous giant made of hydrogen and helium, basically, and these gases and whatever makes up Jupiter, it's got this eye in Jupiter where it's a giant sort of vortex that's been there for forever, apparently. And there's an idea or a theory that perhaps the Earth may have come from Jupiter, that it was essentially grown within Jupiter and ejected, because Jupiter is like a dwarf star that they found, the scientists have found out recently, that actually ejects matter, like you're talking about with the black hole. And periodically this ejection of matter will happen. Did the Earth possibly come as a ejection of matter, or created within the womb, you might say, of Jupiter? I was putting that
let's consider a lot of facts. First of all, the size of this huge orange ball has reduced by nearly 2/3 from the origin, still there, but because cosmologists have plates from this planet from 150, 180 years ago, and all it's been kept. And now that they're measuring this orange ball, is about 30% of its origin 200 years ago. Is reducing in size. Physically, wow, we have data.
That tells me a lot, because we were looking at ancient Egypt, and if it could very well have been that Jupiter was the largest orb in the sky back then. And the sun, because the Earth was further from the sun would be smaller. So of course they would worship Jupiter, and Jupiter would have been the creator to them because it would be the source, or what was in their face at least.
You see, we understand more now with, as I said, the science of man is a combination of all our works. Because I know a research team is working on this, and they actually went and dug up the plates which were taken in 1820s, 1830s, and they compared the size of this orange bulb with today. And it's about 30% of that time. So it's losing its size. We have data, it's a scientific, we have physical observation on the plates, on the glass plates. You know, when in olden days you used to take the pictures of the galaxies on these plates, we have a physical. So we know it's reducing, but it has a characteristic. It creates and is created. It absorbs and releases. It is not necessarily the creator of Earth or all the planetary system, because as they say now, the scientists have not understood. If you read the paper I've written about the ring of the Saturn, you understand immediately. The center of every planet, even the gaseous planet, has a liquid plasma combination of the material and a surface, even be it at the liquid state or a solid state. These huge gaseous planets have a center, a solid center. A center, not in the inner center, we call it the outer core, not the cation core, has a physical dimension like the surface of the Earth. But because of the distance from the sun, the gravitational field forces of it is strong enough to absorb the lighter gases. And then when you absorb these light gases in a massive blanketing, they create their own dynamism. We've seen how the hurricanes on this planet created. And we see why is the direction of them all in the same line. We can say within 80 kilometers now where it's going to hit. But if you look, a wind, a hurricane is a dynamic magnetic field. So it's created by the interaction of the magnetic field of the planet in a given direction, directional rotation of the Earth and everything else. And so when you have so much, so big piled on top of each other, unless they don't solidify that and move, they create friction, they create a lot of motion, a lot of heat. But does not and cannot confirm. But at the same time, because of their dynamism, they absorb energy, they absorb hydrogen, carbon, and in a gravitational magnetic field of their own strength, they create a matter state. They convert the energy the way we become rock and stones, but as it cannot hold to the gravitational field, become heavier than itself, it gets pushed out. And they say it creates a star. We understand the process now fully. And it takes time to absorb. It takes time to grind it together. You know, you put a bunch of flour into the mixer and you put some water in it, and you, at the beginning it's a lot of dust, but when it rotates enough, you got a solid dough. It's the same process.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking about in terms of Jupiter, especially because you've got these enormous winds that
but
are
Earth
blowing
used
at,
to be Jupiter
hundreds of kilometers an hour in opposition to each other. And imagine the turbulence and friction that's involved there, which is part of your patent. The original description was of an orb, like you think of Jupiter as a reactor. It contains the hydrogen and helium that are the critical ingredients in the original reactor. It contains the turbulence. It contains the gravitational and magnetic fields that are interacting. And it's got this big black hole in the middle that to me, it's all churning up and creating matter and periodically ejecting. I think, it makes sense that that might happen. At least stars do that, and dwarf stars are close to the size of Jupiter, apparently. So I think, why wouldn't Jupiter do that in its previous time when it was bigger and possibly was an actual dwarf star, or is?
Jupiter is created out of the fields of the sun. Is not from outside.
Well, it's interesting that I read that the core of Jupiter, they estimate to be over 24,000 degrees Celsius, which is hotter
They
than the
can guess
surface of the sun.
anything.
But yet the
They can
surface
guess
of Jupiter
anything.
is minus 200. So imagine the gradient there, and you can see why it would create
Actually,
such vortexes.
let me put you right. Let me put you right. The temperature on the surface of the sun and Jupiter is created from the interaction of the fields above the surface, not by the inner core. Very soon you will see this. And now that we've gone into operation of the non-motorized systems, very soon you will see how we create heat, but the inside is plastic and holds onto the plasma of the gas. So what they say is a nonsense. Then the plastic has to melt and the gas should be on the floor. I can create you 1,000,000-degree temperature in the middle of the air by dynamic motion of the right gases, now that we are separated from limitation of the copper and the dynamic cores. These are getting tested. These are the systems which are already on the, they are not theoretical, systems have been made. They are going through the test. And still we have some copper connections through magnetic fields. Those in the next step will be taken off. It's like, you remember olden days, you're a mechanic, huh? We had these things we used to turn the engine on. What do you call them? The handles? The
Crank.
cranes? Yeah, the crank we used to use. At the moment, we are in a crank position. Once we come in the dimension of full, total, non-motorized system, what we are now in a non-motorized system, but non-matter state systems, in next maybe 2 or 3 months, as our scientists understand more and more, then we can create any energy level. We do not need any heating elements in the house to keep at 24 degrees. A couple of research centers are moving in that direction. I'm guiding them. They are slowly getting there. So the interaction of the fields at the inertia level dictates the temperature, not at the magnetic gravitational fields at the center of the core. You can walk in the center of the sun. The way you have, you built one of the first GANS reactors, Rick. Is it melting? But if you create a right interaction of other fields and call it its atmosphere, you can create any heat. The heat on the surface of the sun is in the book number 4. I wish I would have never met that guy that they stopped me from publishing. It's explained the temperature of the surface of the sun is so high, doesn't mean the center is high. Is because the interaction of the field strength of the center is so much that it travels through no field strength. So there's not that much field interaction. On the surface, it hits a block, it hits a matter state of itself. And then it releases energy at these high temperatures and the field radiation. This is how the stars release their temperature. The center of the stars, if you understand the totality of the physics, is room temperature, if you want to call it. Some of them is as cold as ice. But the interaction fields, which they create gravitationally, there are packs of energies. In interaction with other packs of energy, they release a field, a very strong field. Man does not understand cold field energy yet. We are looking at high field energy, hot energy packs, we look at it. Cold field energies are much more stronger than hot field energies when they release, because they elevate in such a temperature Some of the scientists at the moment are looking in the negative temperature gradients to create energy and heat. They're doing it because now they start understanding a little bit. It's the same process in the universal condition. When the fields are released, the difference is so high that in interaction with the matter state of the condition, which is the gravitational field and magnetic field balance, which creates what we call the surface boundary, which is like the surface of the Earth, then in interaction with those of reduction of themselves, create heat. A lot of misunderstanding of this knowledge comes from man looking at magma. Why do we have such a high temperature? Because we have a very strong field, but it's more or less as a cold field temperature, not as a hot field temperature. And when it heats the matter state of the inner core of the Earth, it melts it. It has to release so much energy. Look at it. If you understand it in reverse, we go what? 10 kilometers above in the plane, they tell you outside temperature is minus 50 degrees. We are going closer to the sun, but we get colder. When we come close to the Earth, temperature starts building for certain meters. And after that, the temperature drops while you're so cold on top of the mountains. Because at a given temperature is the interaction of the fields with the inertia and the magnetic field of the center of the planet, which creates the heat. And we are an obstacle. So we touch it, it touches us, it touches the magnetic field, dynamic field for what we call the air, and we get the temperature. This is what I said, that the physics of the science of the physics of man is so upside down, it's been accepted so much fallacy, that because we see it on the ice, we accepted what happens in the gravitational magnetic field. It does not. Earth used to be the sign of Jupiter when it was in that orbit. You put any other star which comes from the outer boundaries of the space of this solar system, you get a Jupiter. It's a rubbish collector, it's a light field cloud or gravitational magnetic field collector. Everything which goes, it gets absorbed. It's just the biggest bunch, and it gets bigger and bigger till its own weight gets pulled by the gravitational field of the sun, and it then gradually slips in. The sun used to be in the place of Jupiter and it was big, same as it. If the scientists look in the full structure of the Earth, which we have not understood the high level magnetic fields, we see the same structure. It's just the field, magnetic field, gravitational field of the sun pulls some of the gases to itself, and some of it in interaction goes back. If we didn't have the Jupiter, the temperature of this solar system was not as it is today. It becomes a cooking pot. This planet, gaseous planet, absorb all these particles to themselves. I remember when I was a young boy, my mom called my sister, I'm coming home, can you clean up the house? And I have a sister with a beautiful humor, sense of humor. Usually you pack the clothes and put it in the cupboard. She decided she's going to wear the clothing, all of it she could get on herself. And she was a big balloon in the house. My mom came and says, what's happening? She says, you said clean the house, you didn't tell me where to put it. So I wore everything on me. She was 3-4 times her size. And this is what happens with the other planet. They absorb everything, they get bigger and bigger. Without them, the solar system becomes a cooking pot, because the reflection of the clouds warms up the inside. When it's a cloudy day, you don't get that much cold. When in the winter it's a no cloud, is when you get the frost. It's the same process. We have not understood the total real physicality, the principle of the creation of the solar system. We used to be in that place. And how much did we spew? Or we accept the fallacy that A meteorite hit the moon, the Earth, and part was blown out and it became the moon. Ding ding. We see a bunch of scientists still pushing a lot of these fallacies in cosmology and physics, in astrophysics. And these have to be taken out of the front line because new scientists are standing more and coming up. The young scientists, very young scientists in their 20s, 30s, are literally understanding and coming up with true facts. They can physically make the condition. But most of them are still working in the matter state. If you show them the field's strength as a gravitational magnetic field, and understand even their matter state is a collection of the matter condition magnetic field strength, you see the world of science changes. We see a bunch of very new, few hundred new talents are coming in, but most of them are still connected to matter state. Then we understand the totalities. It's obvious. You can now understand the process, all the biggest stuff. Earth most probably has spewed many, many meteorites. Many of the meteorites come out of these big giant planets. When they spew out, they create a new one. So go on down. It gets absorbed by the gravitational field of the sun, and there we go. We got the bullets coming down. If you're lucky, you can miss. If you missed it, you're happy. If you don't miss, you got hit. Goodbye, dinosaurs. Now we understand most stuff, and as long as you understand one fact, that even a matter state is a gravitational magnetic field given its strength, then you can see everything the way it works.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. We have Peter Salisher here with his hand up. Perhaps we can get a question from him. Would you like to go ahead, Peter? You have to unmute your microphone. I'm not seeing him unmuting. I can try to unmute you and see if that works. No, it didn't. Okay, well, we'll have to, when you get your microphone situated there, Peter, then let us know. And Gunther had his hand up briefly. Do you want to, did you want to speak, Gunther?
Yes, good morning. I wrote my question in the chat, and this was the question. In the past, we had so many.
Let us know who you are, where from, please.
Gunther Blum, my name. I'm from Austria. I'm also in the school, and I have one question about what you said, the sun and the meteorites and the effect of the meteorites reflecting through the sun. In the past on the Earth, we had so many atom explosions. What effect do those explosions had through the sun to the other planets, to the universes?
What do you mean? Can you explain?
Every atom explosion throws out a lot of fields.
Oh, you mean atomic explosion tests?
Atom bomb,
Sorry.
he's talking about.
Atom bombs, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, atomic bombs. And my question is, what is the effect of those rays or those fields, those waves going out to the sun, to the planets, to the universes? Is this maybe also the reason why the change is coming?
Very, very little. You got to understand, even though we glorify the planet Earth, it's a speck of dust. And you can imagine if a speck of dust come from a speck of dust you don't expect to touch. the sun or Jupiter much. But essentially, what has been looked at by nuclear industry and weapon technology in the characteristics of the nuclear bombs, atomic bomb testing, underground and overground, has been affecting the atmosphere of the planet Earth. There are some theoretical physicists in the world of atomics and weapon technology, which they still consider we still have remnants of Hiroshima bomb still falling back on Earth. Are they correct? Possibly. Has some flown so high that now they're getting back absorbed by the Earth back into it? Maybe. The creation of what they call the warming up of the planet is nothing to do with CO2, is nothing to do with burning of the gases. Is in fact has certain other different reasons, and secondly is due to we are going through evolution. What do you call it? Darwin wrote about the evolution of man or animals or beings. The Earth is going through its own evolution. Is moving house, is going through its own condition, is closing closer to the orbit of the sun. So we will see changes. We will see the total loss of the water on this planet in the coming time. We see the planets which are ahead of us closer to the sun. They don't happen to be that. They used to have liquid. That's why we see rivers on them. We see ocean surfaces on them. So partially, the loss of what they're trying to call it global warming is actually what you call process that we are going through, because we see temperature differences between the poles in the gravitational magnetic field strength. So in so many ways, accidentally, whatever we done by extracting so much liquid from the inner sanctum of this planet, we have created the release of the higher gravitational magnetic field strength. That this allows the higher temperatures to reach higher levels. You got to understand, global warming does not come scientifically, if you understand it, from burning of the fuel. Is coming from the cavities of this planet, which they used to be. Oil is heavy. It absorbs much more of the fields which are coming from the center. And now we are putting 85 million barrels a day out. We are replacing in some places with water. What do you do when you want to create a heat transfer reduction? If you put water, the temperature goes out straight away. You put a heavier, thicker material, you absorb most of it. The oil industry is one of the main causes of the change, the heat extension, not the burning in the car. They have made a lot of fallacies about this. I come from an oil industry background. I've studied this very carefully. You're very simple. You get a bowl and put in one side of it another bowl with oil in it, and you put another side with water in it, and you put a light inside or heat inside, see which one gets warmer outside quicker. Partially, the burning, the release of what you call carbon dust, as we call it, CO2 dust, has created some, what you call it, closing of the fields. As I was explaining about Jupiter, if it doesn't absorb. We don't have anything that can absorb these so much. But most of the what we call global warming is pointed out to the wrong place. It's come from the same as we heard from ex-American Vice President Al Gore. It's because of the ignorance. What did he say in the international global warming? We see the loss of the penguins because the bears are eating them. And somebody will tell you, Mr. Dobbs, excuse me, sir, Bears are in the North Pole and penguins are in the South Pole. How could it be? This is what we are causing a global warming, but not necessarily from the burning of the fuel, is by extraction of the oil. We are taking blankets out, more fields are radiated out, and these fields are creating warmer surfaces. These fields creating more, have a higher order which interact at the higher atmosphere with these dust which we create. A lot of things has to be put in order. The main cause of scientifically understanding global warming, you call it, yes, it is oil, but not the oil we burn, it's the oil we extract. It's only few meters, few kilometers. I traveled into Siberian area years ago, trying to ascertain what do you call it, oil fields in Siberia, in the Russian territory. And I was taken 1 o'clock in the morning by people who knew in the oil fields of Siberia, where the Russians have drilled a number of holes 10 kilometers into the earth. And instead of the oil, we hit 96.5 degrees water, purest water we could ever find. And we thought, oh, now drinking water is fashionable, shall we start making a water plant here? And in that time, we studied the geology of the land and how part of Russia in the Siberian area and part of this area are getting warmer than the others. And when you look at partially the geology of extraction of the oil, you get this. And in some cases, you create such a diversity that now we're getting snow in Africa, North African countries. The extraction of the oil is introducing huge new phenomena in heating of the planet, not the burning of the fuel as such. And secondly, when we talk about the, what do you call it, exhaust emission of the cars, they have to be controlled. If you understand the shipping industry, most of the pollution, air pollution or CO2 carbon warming or global warming, as they say, comes from the ship liners, not from the cars. They use the worst downgrade fuel, which is full of rubbish and it releases huge amounts into the atmosphere. You've got to put a few million cars together to cover one of these tankers when they ship from China goods to Asia or to America or to Europe.
Yeah, that's right. It's estimated one of those one of the ships that bring the cars over puts out more pollution than all the cars for their entire life.
Yeah. I come from the oil industry background. Part of my empire is oil business, and I understand. I studied always this structure.
And you're right. It's up to 50 million cars equivalent air pollution from one super tanker.
Yeah, well, nobody speaks to it about it because it's on the sea. We don't see it. Look at the pollution which is coming up with what they call these green cars. We are burning more fuel in the coal fields. I wish those who understand tell these people, please give fuel for the cars to burn in the cars, because the fuels burned in the power stations to get the electricity produced that reaches the city is 30 to 50 times more than the car would consume to do. This green engine, what do you call it, electric cars, if we can tap into the solar systems like solar cells, what you call solar panels, if we can increase the number of windmills, if we can increase the combination plasma technology which we brought, the hybrid system, if we go into the direction which our research centers are going with charging batteries without any fuel, then yes, battery cars, electric cars are a positive use. But if you are burning tons of coal and oil in the power stations to deliver them Two, you got to consider all the heat conversion exchanges, all the power losses on the grid, and everything else. It's better to give the fuel to the cars so to burn it. It's a new industry they have created because we're going to have a number of huge problems with electric cars coming up. The use of titanium, use of copper, these things need a lot of electric components and they're all matter state. Even the batteries, the equation is not in the right way. They don't talk about it. So nuclear bombs, nuclear explosions, with all the dust they've created, is literally even less smaller than a speck of dust. But do they release some materials? They have done. We trace them. It's like from Fukushima, we still get traces all over the world. We still have, as I've said many times before, we still have farms in North Wales in England which cannot be even walked through because of the fallout of Chernobyl. When we got hit by Chernobyl, part of the British nuclear industry had a huge problem in identifying where these things are landing. If you go to North Wales in the mountains, you see sections which are pinned down because when the radiation came down, it rained down with the rain and it's embedded in the soil. And it's in the mountains. They can't do anything, they just pinned it and it's isolated. It's going to be there 200 or 300 years till it goes through this half cycle and partially get washed into the ground. So we have some effect, but not that much. It's very, very minute. The biggest source of nuclear material fallout is from these oil tankers. In the environmental protection of what we call environmental part of the Keshe Foundation, which we are very active, it's not known publicly, we look at something very serious. If you live in Europe, and most probably in America and other places becoming compulsory, if you want to close a petrol station, you have to remove the soil up to 6 meters in depth from the land. And it has to be tested, and when you get a certification that the soil is clean, then you can build on it, you can fill it up. What's the reason? Why do we take all this has to be cleaned up? Why the fuel petrol stations, the tanks have to be all done? Nowadays you have to get certificate every year for fuel tank. If you have an underground fuel tank, you need the certification, otherwise you cannot fill it in, because if there's a leakage, it goes into the ground. Why? Because in the oil industry, due to all the problems with it, we do not purify uranium. Is something which is allowed to go into the fuel. Where does it come? In a fuel station, you tank it, it pours on the ground. We have a huge uranium contamination. When you walk in a fuel station and there was some spillage, you're walking on the liquid uranium. You don't know how many nuclear pieces. I can show you documents for it. That's why we clean the land. But the problem is, at the end of it, the tankers which Rick was just talking about, all those have the most heaviest one. They're spewing uranium into the atmosphere like nothing. Christmas firework. Part of the contamination is the oil industry, that because you have to understand how oil is created. Oil is created according to the rubbish about the fallacies that came out, that is from the oil of the dinosaurs. You are Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers. You all have produced CO2, and what did you get on the top? Oil. you get that film of amino acid. Earth has within its oceans the copper, the zinc, and the energy of thunder and everything else which goes through it. The sea salt continuously absorbs, extracts a part of the system of life of this planet, extracts protein from the atmosphere. Interaction of the field of the earth and the sun creates them. The surface of the sun absorbs them. That's why we see life in the planet, because CO2 was created on it. Because of the presence of zinc, carbon, amino acid created on it. Then you have iron, the blood was created on it. That's how we have all the planktons. So part of this, as it's created, does not convert into a cell of animal. There's not enough fishes to eat it, as we say. So due to the storms and everything, circulation, these amino acids in millions of tons every day land onto the bottom of the ocean. And in the process, as they sink, they wash with them gold, uranium, plutonium, whatever you like, into till they come to stop with the heat of the earth and just cooks up. This dinosaur never dies. And oil will never end on this planet. Those fields which we have emptied from oil continuously get filled up, because in that position it creates a condition for absorption of these are reserve tanks which could produce 80 million barrels a day. There is no end to the production of the oil on this planet unless we go beyond limitation of the use, which we have a long way to go yet. So now when we extract, it's like, you put all sorts of oil and you put sugar and you put salt and everything else you like into a sand and wash it. We use it as a filter. What happens? It gets clogged up somewhere and it all collects, because that's why we have filters. So these filters is oil fields which are created, are filters. They get clogged up here. So in there we have everything. When we extract oil from the ground, we have gold in it, silver in it, plutonium in it, and everything uranium. We've been told, and the refining industry has foolishly, due to all the nuclear fears, has no filter for uranium extraction. Very few fuel stations have, the refineries have. It's expensive handling it, and then it's all nuclear material. Nobody wants to talk about it. We don't handle it. We extract gold from the oil. We extract plutonium, rare earth materials in the specific refineries from this oil. The oil industry, the oil used in the cars is a burden on the oil industry. The money sits in refining rare earth material from the black liquid. But we do not touch uranium. Anything nuclear, which we know is nuclear, has no filter for it. Where does it go? In the black stuff with the ships burn. In the oil which you take, 46 to 47.5% of barrel is fuel oil. Very simple. So if you have worries about nuclear bombs and whatever, the fallout is on top of every super tanker you see lands in your city. While it's in there, it's spewing out enough uranium that the Hiroshima hasn't produced yet. These are facts about new cycle of production of materials and the comfort we have chosen. We have closed our eyes to a lot of it, our governments too, because we have no solution. If I was somebody with a lot of wisdom, I produce now, America is supposed to use 13 million barrels of oil very soon by 2020 per day. I think you can extract at least something in the region of maybe a ton, 2 tons of uranium a day from, if your refineries are filtered the right way. We don't need Chad to buy uranium coke. This is because our leaders do not understand the science of creation. They don't understand the science of protection, which is put on the wrong way around. And in a way, our body has got used to it because part of our evolution comes through the nuclear material we absorb in our food and the air we breathe.
That's interesting, Mr. Keshe. Perhaps we should be extracting the uranium and throwing away the oil, putting it back in the ground.
But what do we do with it?
You'd probably get as much energy from that uranium than from the oil, because it's about 1 million times
What do
more.
we do with uranium? We don't have any. These are stable elements of uranium. Very little radioactive. If you go into EU rules and regulations of fuel stations and read it, you understand why. These things are well explained into the laws of the European Community, that all the lands, or what do you call it, fuel stations which are getting shut down have to be cleaned to a certain level, and the soil has to be washed. And I put a question to it. The Keshe Foundation has one of the eminent scientists in the environmental clinic, and I respect the guy a lot. He's a funny guy. But I discussed this with him. We were in a lab when they were testing the soil from oil fuel station. And the strange thing is, they said, here we are looking for uranium. We are not looking for anything else. How much is contaminated? This is hidden in names and regulations of the EU regulations. The EU has a very tight regulation about cleaning up the uranium of fuel stations.
Well, it's a similar problem in terms of North America. If you look at where the fertilizers come from for the crops in North America, and it comes from the scrubbers of the natural gas power plants. So they take the nitrates and other heavy metals and everything else from the scrubbers, and because it's radioactive and heavy metals, they decided they can't have it all in one place from these scrubbers, so they better include it in the fertilizers and spread it evenly over the land, and that way it'll just blend in with the
wash down
radiation, and yes, basically just wash it down in the soil. But the fallacy there is it builds up in the soil after many decades of doing this. So now it starts to build up the radioactivity in the soil and other heavy metals and so on.
One of the advantages, and now is actually, as I explained, if you were in some of the recent teachings, some of the advantages of the plasma technology in agriculture in not using fertilizers is cleaning up the land, or actually pushing the dirt deeper down that it doesn't get into the food chain. What it is, because we use the GANS material for what do you call it, for the growth of the agriculture products, then there is no need for fertilizers. And this gives a breathing space for these materials to be washed in deeper layers of the planet. And in 3 to 5 years, we see the top 10, 20 centimeters will be cleaned up of all the nitrites and all the radioactive material, because it's literally like the way I explained, the oil is washing everything down till they come to the cap, they get washed by the rain gradually, and they go deeper and deeper. This is one of the positives we are putting to governments, and they can test it. They can test the soil year by year and see reduction in it. But I explained to them, test the first 15, 20 centimeter, because in the 20 centimeter, you don't see that much this year, but next year you see more. But on the first 5 centimeter, you see less, because we are washing it down. Conservation of energy, conservation of matter cannot be fooled and avoided. All we are doing is we're pushing it further down. Gradually, over centuries, it'll end up in another oil field. It's the same situation. The biggest worry at the moment in Western Europe, especially in Holland, in what do you call it, Luxembourg area, and in nations like Italy, is the waste from the cows, which are given so much antibiotic, and these antibiotics comes out, some of it at the other end, and it gets spread over the ground, and then it becomes part of the food chain, and we're becoming immune to it. We're literally feeding the cows. And as they said, always as a joke, they say, I am a vegetarian. I only eat the cow which eats vegetables, so I was still a vegetarian. But this time, we are getting the antibiotics in our system. It's coming from the land. Land is because they spread. There's a regulation, especially in Europe, how much you can spread over the land. They use it to the maximum limit, and they give in Holland and in Italy, there is no land mass to leave the animals alone on the fields. They are grown in confined environments, and confined environments with the temperature creates infection. And on average, every European animal which is kept in-house, the size of a cow or a pig, uses €1 per week of antibiotics. Just ask how many million cows are in Europe. Then you get a good figure how much antibiotic we are eating, which what gets spread on the land. This is why the pharmaceutical industry is very powerful in Europe. Human beings don't use that much. I think their total balance income is maybe 20, 30%, 60, 70% comes in certain nations out of animal care. It's the way we grow animals, we grow food to eat. In Italy, it's about €1 per week. We know because we are involved in the process with the government. In Holland, it's slightly more. In the Scandinavian countries, we have the same problem because of the cold. They're mainly kept in confinement, and that heat and flesh and everything else creates environmental conditions which creates what do you call it, infection. You just count how many pigs are in Northern Europe and put €1 in front of each. Then you see where pharmaceuticals make their money. Not from the aspirin and the penicillin they sell you. They have a permanent patients called cow.
Mr. Keshe, I want to remind you that there's a presentation from Joel, apparently, with Ursula translating, and Pete has arranged that. That would be good to hear from.
Yes, no problem. How long would that be?
Pete, do you have an answer on that, or Ursula, or Joel?
Well, we always advise to keep it sort of within 20 minutes and then allow for questions and answers. But obviously, it's up to the author how long it's going to take them to present.
No problem. Go ahead. Are they ready?
Keshe? Yeah, Mr. Keshe?
Yes.
Good morning. Morning to all of you. I apologize in advance for my English level and my pronunciation.
We apologize, we can't speak your language. It's a one nation, one planet. We are all in the same boat. We only speak our language in our borders. We have translators, and so yes. I allow them to, what do you call?
Thank you.
Take over. I have to check out before you can come in. Just wait.
Okay.
Somehow you have taken my things away. Can you please go out and come back in again? Can you stop sharing it? Can you stop sharing?
Yeah.
Can you stop sharing, please?
Okay.
And come, take everything off, please. Just go out completely and then come back in to share.
Yes.
Okay, just wait a second, please. I have to
excuse me.
Do something. Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Well, last year in June, I started training on McGrath's guns and everything else around them. It was a revelation for me, and I followed your basic courses, to which you often rightly refer. They are very important for all of us. And the evolution of technology, as you present it, is fabulous. Reactor technology, McGrath technology, health application, agriculture, have prompted me to ask myself the following question. Can we identify with a simple physical test GANs pairs that can induce a dynamic flow between them? More precisely, I ask myself this question because I think that this flow, if it exists in a good combination of GANs, can create an important dynamic, for example, by transposing two disk technology McGrath coils associated with this combination, or in agriculture, create dynamic flows that would allow vegetation to eat itself and flourish. So do they attract each other? Do they repel each other? It's my question. And I thought that the easiest way to highlight this phenomenon is to use sphere floating in a box with main guns filled. Bon, to do that, I need some characteristic criteria for each guns, and the periodic table of elements contains them, because I used the atomic mass and the electronegative label, which is a quantity of an atom that defines its ability to attract electrons during a chemical bond. So if we refer to this characteristic and transpose them to the GANs studied, we obtain the values on the table under with global atomic mass, global electronegativity. Then, before starting this test, the equipment is very simple. It's a large rectangular glass container with a flat bottom filled with water, a series of plastic spheres with 30 millimeter diameter, each of them filled with GANs, agreed on paper, stopwatch to trigger the photos every 30 seconds, a table with an anti-static coating, and a camera. The view you can see here, design shows the sphere floating in the back, at the end, and the end view and the side view. Each test was duplicated between 5 and 10 times to confirm the value. This view is a compilation of the nano-CH3 test image, and I just put on the video to show you. The real duration of the test is 8 minutes. I have done it many times. The second compilation is a CO2 CH3, and the duration is very important. So I put the video. They go towards each other very slowly. And it took a long time with photograph every 30 seconds. they come very, very slowly, each other. The grid is very important to study the trajectories and the speeds, and the time when the trajectories bend to have contact with the spheres. So the first four tests with a couple of magnetic and gravitational ganses were very, very long, as you saw in this video, with disappointed contact time. They are up to 1 hour, and I tried CO2 ZNO with 40 minutes without contact. Then the last one were very easier. So if we had a only criterion of the atomic mass, the result will be unusable. Why? Because when we saw the red couples, the atomic mass, 2 high radius, and the time to contact with the sphere very different. So we couldn't understood the result. Same thing for the blue one. The atomic mass very different, 2 high values, and the time contact for the two spheres, 2 similar values. So I thought that the electronegativity level are very important. It's the difference in atomic mass value between the two GANs of the couple that matters, as well as the difference in electronegativity level between the two, as we saw here. All are not such effective in bringing the sphere into contact because they have 2 criteria, a small deviation. Gravitational don't work quickly, but they are under 40 minutes. And all magnetic couple work very well because they are less than 30 minutes to have contact with the spheres. To conclude on this first part, we only considered ganses couples that allow sphere to come into contact in less than 30 minutes. There are 5 couples, and the ZNO CO2 couple in the yellow with table will also be studied because it's only gravitational couples that below that is below 40 minutes to for the sphere to be accosted. In the second part of the study, I analyzed the trajectories of the spheres in the last centimeter of the race to evaluate their respective speeds and to try to answer to the following question: is there a propelling GANS? If so, what is it? What is its relative speed? Which sphere will take precedence over the other? And the answer of the question will allow us to create a diagram of those these GANs interact with privileged direction of attraction. As an example, we can see here the trajectories of H2 and CH3 at the end of the race, and I repeat all these all these results. I studied all these results for each ganses. Here we can see that H2 travels towards CH3 because the average of the CH2 is very, very important. In front of the speed of CH3. So we can classify the couple and conclude on each test. This table show you the results, and we can draw the diagram of how the ganses interact each other. We can see that H2 goes to CH3, CH3 goes to CO, CO goes to the H2. ZNO and CO2 ZNO is attracted by the CO2. So in final conclusion, this study shows that natural dynamic flow exists between several suitably selected ganses. Electronegativity criterion is essential to sort the GANs as part of the attraction function. Gravitational GANs couple do not interact quickly. They are not efficient in this function. Magnetic GANs couple attract quickly. Mixed GANs couple operate under certain conditions with large difference in atomic mass, and if there are large difference in the electronegativity level. After that, we can have a multi-combination of possible sphere to circle here, alternative ganses in torus here, concentric torus, and I think we can use it as an example for the Margrave with the free level of Margrave and the different combination of ZNO, H2, CO2, CH3, then CO. I think it's finished for me. Before the question, I would like to thank the people who allowed me to be here today. KF Plasma Journal team with Pete, KF Reactor Group with Rick, Adil, who encouraged me to expose my test, and especially my wife and your wife and you for what you bring us through the extra technology, and who give me today the opportunity to present my work. I can answer a few questions if you want to ask me, but with the help of a translator to make sure I understand what you are saying. Thank you, Mr. Keshe. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much. That was a great presentation, I thought.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have any comments? Or Mr. Keshe, are you still there? Do you have something you'd like to say about that? Is there anybody with any questions? Just checking our chats here. I had a question about your final, the final slide you showed there with the setup of the Margrave sort of system. How did you determine? How did you determine which GANs goes where? What criteria did you use? How they interact?
I used electronegativity level and the mass, atomic mass. And I saw with the trajectories of the spheres that a Gans, one Gans move the sphere towards the other.
Okay, thank you.
But I have two questions. Can I, Rick, can you hear my question, please?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Last year, Mr. Keshe said that MAGRA system about large diameter cores are gravitational and small diameters called magnetic. But what I learned is the opposite. Larger coil magnetic and smaller diameter coils gravitational. Do we have to review the connection between the coils because of this change? Or do we have to modify the old one?
I don't have the answer to that. Is there anybody who would be able to answer that? Or Mr. Keshe, would you like to?
I don't understand the question.
Mr. Keshe, last year you said about MAGRA system that a large diameter coils are gravitational and small diameter coils are magnetic. But
Yes.
what I learned was the opposite. Large diameter coils magnetic and small diameter coils gravitational. I saw a diagram of the Keshe Foundation on August. Do we have to review the connection between the coils because of this change when manufacturing new magras? Do we have to modify the old one?
The magnetical, it depends how you nano-coated your coils and how you winded it. Even in the PPUs, we set the outer ring to be magnetical, gravitational, that in pulling from the atmosphere to feed to gravitational. Original designs are still the what do you call it, the gravitational inside, magnetical outside. In how you wind and how you produce gases to load dictates on what you're going to get.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, most of we consider MAGRAV systems as outside magnetical, gravitational. It's the way you nano-coat them.
Okay.
And the way it is, because this is that we absorb energy from the environment and we feed it to the center core in a way, in absorbing, pulling, and then the center core radiates by feeding back out.
Okay.
And this is the phenomena. This is the understanding.
Okay. But what about the old ones? Do we have to reverse the connection?
You can do either way. It's just that how you set your system out. There is the reason I brought that discussion up last year is that you have to understand the condition and why we came up with that knowledge.
Okay.
It was we consider it for specific conditions. All the PPUs are set up this way.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. I have another question. Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
When an electric current is circulating through a coil, an inductance is created. Do you think we could use a magnetic flux flow? Do you think we could use a magnetic flow created in this way to boost the natural dynamic flow of gases in a maggrav?
I don't understand. Can you repeat?
When an electric current is circulating through a coil, an inductance is created. You know? Do you think we could use magnetic
no, I don't
flow?
understand. You have to, can you explain that, please?
Saying when there's a current in a coil, it creates an inductance in the coil, which is a, coil is an inductor, basically, which is a magnetic field.
Yes, that's right.
And you're saying, can we use that magnetic field? Is that what you're saying? Is to be part of, control the plasma? Is that what you're indicating?
That's right.
Okay. So that would be the question.
What it is, if you go on some of the teachings in the past, very recently, past few months, I have explained that the gravitational magnetic fields of the system is part of it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Keshe. Thank you.
I think is with the research with John and others, if you put, you can feel the fields above maggrav units. With the maggrav units, there is a misconception that we just use it for the maggrav for energy, electrical power. We developed a maggrav unit as is coming up for the development of the plasma. And so it is based on fields. This is what we call a composite power units. It's what do you call it? Hybrid, if you call it, electric current and the plasma current. The problem is knowledge seekers have to start learning to play with these things. And some of the fields, even if you put your field detectors, or you have developed it, if you recheck your systems and put it in the right order, what you thought is magnetical suddenly changes to gravitational. It depends on the field forces on the layers. This is why some of the maggrav units, they don't perform, because the gravitational field forces of the plates are too close to each other.
Thank you,
It
Mr.
creates
Keshe.
a blockage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I applied to be a student of the foundation, and I sent my dossier and my donation last week. I am very happy.
Thank you very much. What you call the knowledge is we give, we share, is to be open-minded and to be not just to be accepted, is to be tested, and understanding that in a plasma technology is not a current technology, it's electric current. That is only you get a current, is a joule field reaction. And what is you can enforce the fields, and or you can surrender the fields into a system. And then you decide, and the system itself decides, because you could be a slightly few centimeter gap in the position of your maggrav coils can make a big difference in the performance of your system.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I also wish to be empowered to do Magrav and Gansis workshop, because I'm convinced that this technology must be taught to many people as possible, with the main goal of having peace for humanity, I think.
Thank you very much. We hope we all share the same goal.
Yeah.
And we'll see where we are going and how we are. As I said, the Keshe Foundation in the past few weeks is going through a phase that as we don't announce anymore our operational work, that we'll see major breakthroughs in the work of the foundation. And knowledge seekers like you and others before you and come after us will all put a brick into this wall to make it much stronger and taller. So every piece of knowledge what you bring, it gives somebody to work on, or we understand a little bit more how to do a lot of things. This knowledge needs thousands of years to be completed. And it needs a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and we should probably wrap things up soon, I suppose, Mr. Keshe. I'm sure you're getting tired there. We did have one question maybe you could answer from Doug, who had it earlier, regarding, he's wondering what the importance of Mercury is in the elements of this planet and its inhabitants. Has it manifested as a precursor to the condition that the Earth is moving closer to the Sun? And he goes on, Mercury seems to be a solid, liquid, and gas combined as one together in the matter state conditions. Is that why it is used by man in mirrors and thermometers, etc.? So what's its universal plasmatic significance is his basic question.
Nothing is another element. It's created due to the condition of the universe. And if a body or a structure has created the fields of it, has attracted it, or if you have, you understand the work of its fields, what it can do, you can use it for everything. It's not just because we use it for thermometers. The only reason we use, there's a fair amount of mercury in our body, but it's used for a specific job. You find out some of the elements in the body of the man, like in kidney, carry a composite elements, because now you have whatever is in your blood, they have to extract it. It's not there that what we see with the present science, they show you this element. They create a magnetic field that matches the poisons in the blood or the extra elements in the blood, and they just by magnetic field extract it, and then it transfers into matter. The whole body is that way. And so there is no specific reason. If part of the body of the man needed operation of the certain given magnetic field, then to match it, the body needed mercury. When you eat something, it comes in, so this fits. The body of the man is the most opportunistic structure God ever created. Whatever it needed, it came in, I can use it, he has used it and converted to how he can use it. You have a soul which is a programmer, it is a creator. Let's see, this is a new material, how can I do, how can I adapt myself? What is what we call evolution? You think it's just by accident? The operation of the body of the man is a most complex, but is programmed to need use. Available, what can I do with it? What can I extend to it? As I always say, the most opportunistic people in the world are football players that they put themselves in a specific position, and when it's there, they score a goal. This so is the man. The body of the man is the same position. So, call it a day, Rick?
Yes, I think you've answered lots of questions here and put in your daily work for sure. Thank you, Mr. Keshe. Thank you for everything today.
You're welcome. I hope we added to the knowledge of man. Quite a lot of it today.
Yes, or at least spark some souls to consider what they're doing on this planet. Okay, thank you everybody for participating and listening today in the 263rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, February 14th, 2019. If there's any questions left over, bring them around for next week. And we look forward to continuing the 264th Knowledge Seekers Workshop at this same time and location, wherever you found us this time around. And thanks very much to Mr. Keshe and to the Keshe Foundation for bringing this teaching to us. Okay, you can take us out now, Flint, I believe, with whatever ending videos you have. And bye for now.
Hello. We are the Keshe Foundation. Our mission is to bring peace on Earth and join humanity with the universal community. We wish and work to bring man as equal to all beings in the universe. By teaching plasma science and technology equally to everyone, no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. By donating to us, you can help achieve this goal. keshefoundation.org/donate.
Plasma products found at keshefoundation.org/store. Soothing, reusable plasma eye and migraine mask. Eliminate eye fatigue and relieve stress in eye area. European certified medical device. Massaging plasma insoles. Bring comfort back to your feet and energize your legs. European CE certified medical device. Antiseptic plasma liquid hand soap. Promotes well-being and relaxation with protective plasma formula. CE certified. One Soul Plasma T-shirt. GAN's formula within the symbols and stripes brings mind, soul, and body into balance. European certified. Pain Relief Pen. Emits a concentrated plasma field at point of pain, efficient up to 3 centimeters below the skin. CE certified. The Magrav's Energizer and Alkalizer raises pH and energizes water through magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Pain Relief Pad, a result of years of research in nanoplasma technology with magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Visit the online store at keshefoundation.org/store or find a distributor near you. Tax and shipping not included.